あまたの侵略あれど我らの侵攻にかなうものなし。テオドシウス・コンスタンティノス、我らは決して屈さぬ。この身が滅びようとも我が祖国は永遠なり。
What is up? Good morning to you. How are you doing? I am up on this beautiful May 18th morning to talk about a new servant that has just been released on the JP server. This is Constantine. We knew he was coming. We didn't know when. He is now here. He is a limited servant. I want to highlight that. He is a limited servant. We'll be revisiting that as we go. Across the board, an interesting servant. We'll talk about why. To start things off, base HP 2046. That's right on par with some others. Interestingly enough, for his kit, you would think that it'd be a little bit higher, but 2046 is just a little bit lower than Queen Maeve, Leonardo da Vinci, and then Ryder Arturia as well. So, pretty good. Obviously skewed towards HP over attack. Going on down here, he's a lawful good man attribute servant. He's got a 45% death rate, which is below 50%, but a little bit higher than a lot of other 5-star riders. NP charge on attack is not great, but you know, is what it is. He is not here to attack to get his NP, as you'll find out. His star absorption at 198 is on the low side for riders. Their base star absorption is 200. You'll see a lot of other ones higher than that. However, Achilles is 196, so it's not an end-all be-all type of thing. A double arts, double buster kit, 4 hits on the arts and 4 hits on the quick, 3 on the buster and 5 on the extra attack. Always love to see a lot of hits on extra attacks. It allows you, whether you do an arts quick arch chain, whether you're doing you know, buster arts, whatever you want to do, it allows you to just get a little bit more out of that extra card when it comes to arts and quick hits, things like that. Going on down here, looking at his kit, his third skill is really his bread and butter, and we'll get to that, but I did want to highlight, look at all of this going on. Always love to see that. On the first skill, though, it is NP gain up 30 to 50% for 1 turn for himself, and it's also a taunt for 1 turn, and then he gains stars 10 to 20%. Pretty good scaling here. It's 1 star per increase. Obviously, we've seen a lot of servants where they'll go up a skill level and not go up any star increase, so very good to see that. Reasonable 6-turn cooldown, nothing wrong with that at all. Second skill, Fallen Empire EX. It's party attack up for 3 turns, 10 to 20%. Party buster up for 3 turns, again 10 to 20%. And then he increases the critical damage of Roman allies for 3 turns, 20 to 30%. Again, a 6-turn cooldown. Not bad, not bad at all. 3 turns of downtime on this is honestly pretty good, pretty good. Again, here's this third skill, Cessation Privilege C. It charges his NP gauge 20 to 30%. It increases his own critical damage for 3 turns, 20 to 30%. He also gains critical stars every turn for 3 turns. The scaling on this is exactly what we just talked about, where it'll go up a skill level, but you won't see any increase on it. So not ideal, but you know, is what it is. 5 to 10 on the star regen right there. And then he gives himself an on-death activation buff for 3 turns. When he is defeated, or if he is defeated, he charges the last ally's NP gauge except himself. So that'll be 20 to 30% to the last ally, so farthest back. Think reverse Chengong. Increases their critical damage for 3 turns, that's 20 to 30%, and then grants them a critical star regen buff for 3 turns. That is also 5 to 10, same scaling that he had on the stars per turn. It's interesting, and we'll kind of dive in further as we go along. Let's get through the entire kit first. But you can already tell that this is a very interesting kit, a unique kit, and we're going to see how this kind of synergizes, what you can do with this. Going on down to the NP, it is a support NP. It is non-damaging, you should say. Increases his buster performance for 3 turns, 30 to 50%. It gives himself an invincibility for 1 attack over 1 turn. And then it reduces the damage taken of Roman allies by 5,000 for 1 turn. That's important because it also increases the party's defense by 100% for 1 turn. 100% defense up for 1 turn for the party. And that's at base overcharge. It can go up to 200% at 500% overcharge. And as we've mentioned in the past, overcharge on the JP server is an entirely different beast than it is on the NA server, because it's simply easier to get based off of the servants that are around your overcharging servant right here. So we'll look at the mats as well. We're not going to spend a lot of time on this yet, but we'll just take a quick look. 22 proofs to go up for the second ascension, and then pretty reasonable on the third and fourth ascensions. Honestly, this is not that bad. Not that bad at all. But of note, the 22 proofs. Going on down to the skills, we do have 44 proofs. We also have 24 of the steel, and then 24 of the silver crowns. So that could start to add up a little bit, and especially since the skills that he does have on the first skill, the second skill especially, this is a 30% start and 50% in, so the scaling on this is nice, but when you get to the second skill, it's only 1% increase per skill level. Not exactly the most desirable increase, but it also means that if you're strapped for materials, you could theoretically stop at level 6 and still be fine. It's only a 5% drop across all three buffs here. On the third skill, this again, it's only a 5% difference between the NP charge, the crit damage, the ally NP charge, and then the ally crit damage. So if you're strapped for materials, again, you could stop at 6. However, with this being his NP gauge, we do usually encourage it to be maxed out. Then again, most servants are not necessarily built to just be out there for the entirety of the battle and kind of like in the trenches. Constantine is built for that. A lot of servants want to get out there, kill things in 3 turns, or help you kill things in 3 turns, and then be done with the battle. Constantine is not necessarily built for that. He can stand out here, he can take the hits, and he can help himself dish them back out with buster crits, right? So overall, an interesting, I would say not surprising, but a little bit, how do I say this politely? Unique, let's say, take on what is essentially a tank role, right? Real quick, we'll take a look at the Bond CE over here. The art on this is very nice. This is Constantine's Bond CE. Interestingly enough, it grants an on-death activation, attack up of 20% to the party, except himself, obviously, and then it restores HP by 5,000 to the party, obviously, except himself. So that's, in a nutshell, the entirety of his kit. What does this mean? What is this? What are we looking at? So we have here someone who wants to taunt, as we see on this first skill. Upon getting taunted, they will increase how much NP they gain from those hits. That's nice, honestly. The star gain here at 10 to 20, the star gen here, that's nice as well. And then on the second skill, the crit damage, attack up, and buster up. Again, the Roman crit damage is for the party. He does have the Roman trait. He also has the King trait, funny enough. Take note of that for future comps and future gimmicks, let's say. But yeah, so he wants to take the hits. He wants to, protect your party. He also wants to enable himself to carry his own weight and do some buster critting. It's not going to be the strongest buster critting. As a rider, his star weight means that you don't necessarily need to worry about where you're going to get the star absorption up from him from. 198 is a little bit low for riders, but riders are so far ahead of everyone else that it really does not matter whatsoever. So essentially, the flow of battle for Constantine is going to be, you start the battle, you pop this third skill, you can wait for the stars per turn to proc on the next turn, and then use the star bomb on the first skill to get the taunt going as well. Build your NP even more. You've already got a little bit here from the 20 to 30%. Obviously, with the pen skills, that's going to get you to 50% if it's first turn, right? Then, after you've taken some hits from that second turn, you've got the stars. All of that's ready to go. You can start to do some damage. You can start to crit as well. The other aspect of his kit is this Roman protection aspect, right? So, down on the NP here, he'll reduce the damage of Roman allies taken by 5,000 for a turn. There are a lot of battles where you're just not going to take 5,000 damage with one hit, especially if you have class advantage. So you're essentially giving Roman allies, with your 100% defense up and the 5,000 damage cut, you're essentially giving them a turn of invincibility if they have class advantage. Obviously, there are some NPs that are going to out-hit that, and the potential for crits in particular challenge quests or boss fights is very real. But essentially speaking, in a normal battle, you're giving them a single turn of invincibility without actually giving them a single turn of invincibility. He, however, will have invincibility for one attack, one turn. If you were to use this in conjunction with the first skill, if you're in a pinch, obviously he's going to be able to tank the first hit of whatever it is. I really kind of wish there was a heal somewhere in here, because then we could start to talk about this being a very interesting soloist, a very interesting challenge or boss content servant in and of himself. Beggars can't be choosers, though. Obviously, that's just a little bit of wishful thinking on my part. But, you know, it'd be cool. It'd be cool. Potential for a future buff, let's say. One other thing to note, his append skill is anti-archer, which means you'll never use it. And his independent action passive is a nice 7% crit damage up. Their other two are pretty standard. So, yeah. Going across the board here, like I said, you're going to see a lot of usage cases where it's going to be him protecting Roman allies, him out there supporting Roman allies. This is a servant that, interestingly enough, you are not going to worry about class neutrality with, right? So if Constantine is out there with class neutrality, obviously Nero being a saber, Caesar being a saber, a lot of other instances where you might have a Lancer out there as well for the Roman traits. You may not want to plan to have him out there for class, you know, neutrality or advantage, right? Either way, you don't really care. It's about who else is on the team with him. Now, that being said, this is a limited servant. I'm surprised by that. I really am. Looking at this kit, knowing about Constantine, sort of preliminarily speaking into the story, as well as like from a personality aspect, I really thought that this was going to be a story locked or general pool servant. I did. I'm surprised that this is limited. When it comes to limited servants, we've talked about this in the past. We try to hold them to a little bit of a higher standard. We try to look at whether or not we're going to get our money's worth, because they're not going to spook us in the future. Obviously, GSSRs notwithstanding, this is your time to get them if you are going to get them. So because of that, if you're going to make a concerted effort to get a limited servant, we really want to know, hey, what am I getting out of this? Am I getting good value out of this pursuit, right? In my opinion, and this kind of sounds harsh, I don't really see this as a worthwhile limited servant. Is he good for what he does? Yes. For what he does, he is good, which is to protect Roman allies as often as you can get this NP going. Are there a lot of Roman allies that are going to allow you to necessarily spam your NP endlessly? There's a couple who can help with that, but in and of themselves, not necessarily, right? Obviously, you can use other supporters to help make that happen. One that comes to mind, interestingly enough, is another rider with Rhaenys right here. Rhaenys' NP gain, in addition to the defensive buffs that Rhaenys provides, actually has pretty good synergy right here. Not to mention the extra invincibility that Rhaenys can provide and the battery. Some great synergy going on between the two of them right off the bat. Although there's no Roman synergy there, you could theoretically have another Roman ally out on the field to do basically whatever you want, whether it's be your actual DPS or something else. There's conceivably a comp where you have your Roman ally DPS, your Constantine be your tank, and Rhaenys be a general support, giving perhaps the attack up to your DPS, defense up across the board for that 10% to the team, and then the invincible plus battery to Constantine. Like that's a conceivable comp. That's something that you could have some fun with. Especially depending on the boss fight or the challenge content. Honestly, like it's reasonable. It's reasonable to think that. But now you're including two limited servants in Rhaenys and Constantine into what is essentially a gimmick comp. I hate to mention meta, but there's not really going to be much of any meta inclusion for Constantine, at least on like the immediate future, immediate outlook, I should say. And that's okay. Not all servants have to be built for meta. Not all servants have to like immediately have a massive impact on the game. No one is going to replicate Melusine, you know what I mean? So that's okay. But again, this is a limited servant. When we look at limited servants, we try to get a lot out of what we're getting for the limited servant. And this is okay. He's okay. No one has a hole in their roster that this guy's gonna fill. I don't mean any disrespect. Obviously, the design is fantastic. You saw the NP at the start of the video. I'm a fan of it. Even onto the craft essence, again, I'm a fan of it. And from a story perspective, I'm really glad that we've got Constantine in the game, and I like that his kit is constructed the way it is. But not for a limited servant. Not for a limited servant. Even if this was a limited 4-star, it just wouldn't really hit the mark for me personally. So no one's going to look at their FGO roster and say to themselves, this guy right here is going to fill a gameplay need that I have. He is going to fill a gap that I currently cannot possibly cover without any other rider taking the stage. The very easy comparison, I should say, is to Georgios. Georgios is goated for a reason. That 2-star cost, in addition to the 3-turn taunt, he has guts as well. His NP is extremely weird, obviously with the damage and then dragon application. It's neither here nor there. Even Boudica, although Boudica is not nearly as valuable as what Constantine is going to bring to the table, she's at least free. So no one's really going to look at Constantine and say to themselves, I just don't have a defensive-oriented rider. I just don't have a taunting rider, because you do. Especially if you recently rolled for Rhaenys, you do have that capability. And even if you didn't, we all have access to Georgios. And if you really wanted to build a powerful Boudica, you could. So, all in all, not bad. Honestly, I would be upfront and honest with you if this was a bad kit. I don't dislike the kit. Again, I see some already, and we're literally just hours away from the release of this servant. Already there are some use cases that you could see that would be really interesting. He's going to enable you to use your favorite Roman servant more often than you could previously. A lot of people's favorite servants are Roman servants, so that's a legitimate use case. I do wish that the taunt was maybe 2 turns, maybe even a little bit more. If he's going to be a taunt wall, if he's going to be a protector, perhaps expand that out a little bit. Not really a huge deal. That's a beggars can't be choosers type thing. The one thing that really does stick out to me though, the scaling on this second skill, 10 to 20% for these 3. That's really not that much if we're being honest. If I'm sending someone out there to do attack up and buster up and then do a little bit of crit damage too, there are other servants. There are other servants who can provide more than what this provides, either on a single turn basis or on a sustained basis in more limited cases. The third skill is extremely interesting, as we've mentioned a couple of times already. It requires him to die to have value to the rest of the party. And if he's dying, then he's not soaking up hits and he's not reducing the damage taken for your allies. Even if they're not Roman allies, this is 100% defense up. Like that's pretty healthy. It's only 1 turn. It is only 1 turn. And the buster performance up is for his own self. So you have a servant who provides protection by drawing fire away and can protect them via the defense up, especially if they're Roman allies, the 5,000 damage cut. And then in the meantime is going to potentially have some buster critting capability, but it's not necessarily elite. It's not necessarily going to be in that top tier of buster critting capability. It's a little bit boosted, but it's not necessarily enough to merit having him be out there for that role, right? Now we mentioned the HP earlier. This is not the highest HP in the rider class for a 5-star. Again, with this kind of kit, you would assume that they would just kind of give him that. You would assume that he would, by default, have the highest HP. I was surprised in doing research for this video at who has the highest HP across the rider classes. We talked a little bit about this already, but Da Vinci Rider has 2,069, Rider Artoria 2090, and Queen Maeve at 2048, right? Well, Constantine's is 2046, so not top 3. I just kind of assumed it'd be higher. If someone had told me about his kit, I would say that's a story locked or general pool servant, and their HP is probably going to be the highest or second highest in his class, and he's probably going to have the ability to have multi-turn defensive capability buffs for obviously the taunt here, and then on the NP down here, right? So is he worth going for? That's up to you. Always go for who you like. That's the general rule of thumb in FGO. I follow that myself, and I hope that others do as well. But this is essentially a paid feature of the game, going for these servants, unless you've been saving up for a long time, which there's very little chance that you have been for him, except for unique instances where someone's really been looking forward to him, right? But on the whole, I'm not sure that this is really a limited servant value right here. I'm not really sure that this is someone that a lot of people are going to be seeking out to say, hey, I need this kind of servant in my kit. I need this kind of servant in my toolkit here just to provide defensive capability, provide buffing for my Roman servants, etc. It's extremely niche. Obviously, he does have his own lane. That's nice to see. It's really nice to see when a servant comes into the game and immediately has carved out a niche for themselves. You can't have that all the time, obviously, but it's nice to see, and he has definitely done that. You can pretty reliably say that there's not going to be a better defensive specialist for Roman allies than Constantine in the game. Sorry, Boudica. So that being said, all in all, I like his design. I like his Bond CE. I think he'll be interesting to see in some cases. He'll be interesting to see in some challenge comps and some videos. I really do wish he had a heal. I do. I wish he had a heal. I know that he is supposed to die on this third skill, but outside of this, if he's not going to die, then like, let's let the guy plant his sword in the ground just like his NP and take the hits and really extend the battle for us, you know what I mean? So, all in all, interesting servant. To each their own. I will not be rolling, but, you know, you do you. So what do you think? Obviously, I'd like to know down below in the comments, what are your thoughts on Constantine? Are you going to roll for Constantine? Have you already rolled for Constantine? If you're seeing this in the future, what are some use cases that you've seen out of him? Definitely would like to read all of those comments as time goes on. And last but not least, what are your impressions of this servant? What do you think is appealing about this? Is there something that you think I've missed? Is there something that you think is more important than what I've mentioned here? On the whole, like I said, it's cool to see him in the game. Just a few things that I personally would have liked to have seen a little bit differently, right? But when you've got a face like that and hair like that, you can kind of skate by with some things, so we'll let it pass. That being said, thank you so much for watching. Please, 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 if you like this and other content similar to it, hit the subscribe button. You could even hit the like button as well. I know we kind of say that a lot as people making YouTube videos, but it does help us out, especially for smaller, younger channels like my own. I look forward to seeing your feedback, and I look forward to seeing you hang out with us at twitch.tv/Sharquado. Thank you so much for watching, and take care of yourself. Cheers.